Hi again there. Welcome to Molecule to Market, where we go inside the outsourcing space of the global drug development sector. As always, I'm your host, Raman Sehgal, and thank you for joining us for today's episode. And today I had the absolute pleasure of speaking to Peter Soelkner, who's Managing Director at Veta Pharma. It really was a pleasure to interview Peter because his journey at Veta is super interesting, and it was really insightful for me to get an insight into Veta Pharma, a company that I've known for a long time, but didn't realize how big they have become in the CDMO space and just some of their learnings on the journey. Peter also talks about kind of the kind of very humble origin story of this kind of injectable filling specialist who really have built a fantastic reputation in this space. He also talks about his personal journey, from being at Veta very early on to going to a different company and then coming back to Veta, including kind of time in the US and now back to Europe on his journey of effectively running or co-running $1 billion company. He talks very openly about culture and DNA and, having scale up challenges and, how the people component is key. Also look out for his future trends at the end. It was really quite interesting to hear where he feels the industry is going and where CDMOs in particular need to be prepared to deal with the evolving demands of biotech companies. For background, Peter has been the managing director of Veta since 2008. And in 2009, he was also appointed the managing director of the international business as the head of sales and marketing within the organization. He graduated from the University of Dortmund in Germany back in 1992 with a degree in chemical engineering and earned an MBA from Columbia University, New York. Before joining Veta, he held positions in Germany and North America with Sartorius AG and Sartorius North America across very, very different functions. At Veta from 2003 to 2007, Peter managed the key account management function and general management roles within Veta before rejoining the company in 2008. And now he looks after the business with a fellow managing director. I really enjoyed my conversation with Peter, and I really hope you do too. As always, thank you for listening and supporting Molecule to Market. If you get just 5 seconds today, please go on to your app store of choice and give us a nice, kind 5-star rating. It'll literally take you 5 seconds and it will make my day. Enjoy today's episode. We are supported by ZymeWire, which is the leader in actionable sales intelligence for life science business development professionals. In fact, thousands of life science BD professionals start their day with sales signals from ZymeWire. And our friends at ZymeWire are giving Molecule to Market listeners an exclusive deal. Just head to zymewire.com/molecule to market to learn more. Hey, Peter, welcome to the show.
Hi, Roman. Thanks for having me. It's great to be there, and really look forward to our conversation.
Yeah, me too. And it's been a long time coming getting you and the team from Veta on Molecule to Market. So I'm really delighted to have you here as a guest. And just to start off with, Peter, it'd be great if you could give our listener a bit of a history of your career and how you ultimately ended up becoming managing director for Veta Pharma.
Yeah, so by education, I'm a chemical engineer and an MBA, and I've spent the last 25 years in the pharmaceutical and biotech industry. So used to work for Sartorius, that is a supplier for separation/filter equipment, fermentation equipment, all kinds of things you can utilize around the biotech industry and the laboratories and so forth. And that's where it all started in research and development. And so being an engineer is okay, fine, I do that. And work really with Sartorius on all kinds of applications, which was a great school to find a way into processes. And before I knew it, so I became more attached to the business world, since I really enjoyed it to talk to clients and try to find solutions for their problems and processes. And at the end of the day, I switched over to product management marketing. I thought to myself, yeah, don't want to be a self-made businessman without any business education. And so, other than working, went back to school and got my MBA from Columbia in New York way back then. And yeah, so migrated more and more towards the managerial side, the sales and marketing side at a certain point in time, still having that technical background. And since in 2003, I moved over to Feta the first time, where all of those talents to a certain degree came together, that I had to have some technical bone in my body, and on the other hand, that I learned a little bit about the market and what makes customers tick, and how do we find really solid solutions for them, and really found at the rear end of that supply chain, at the fill and finish side at Vetter, a very interesting company here. And at that point in time, I was a level below, being responsible for sales slash key account management, and then later on for supply chain management as well. Before I moved back for roughly 1.5 years to Sartorius, where we had kind of interesting times here at Vetter, and so those folks were I had a kind of a topic with. They moved to the wayside, and at the end of the day, together with a Feta family and my colleagues here from the managerial side, we really set sails to a new Feta, and which had been quite a successful run since June 2008. So was the time when our returns are all started, in end of 2007, beginning of 2008. I completed the team there mid of 2008, and since then I think we really have a very good ride. Usually, when good things are happening, a good team is involved. It's not just one individual making a difference there. You can contribute, that's all great, but for me, that really was fun. Nobody has to work at a certain employer. It was a deliberate choice, and I never regretted that I came back. And from that perspective, yeah, now I'm in my mid 50s. That has been the story thus far. So
That's great. And I'm going to dig into some of that a little bit more because there were some really interesting elements that you mentioned there. Do you mind just describing Vector as an organization in terms of my understanding is it's still a family owned business, and it'd be great to also get a feel for what was Vector like when you joined back in the early 2000s versus what it is today, because it looks like a very different company 20 years on. So it would be great to kind of give our listener just a feel for, I suppose, the journey that it has been on and what it was like. And and my understanding from my research is, the company actually goes back 70 years, and in a pharmacy it has an incredible history. But it would be great to just talk about that because it's quite unusual, I think, for the size of CDMO that Vector is
yeah.
today.
Yeah, so let's start with the footprint we're having today, and then we go a little bit back in history, and I try to address a couple of those questions. So at this point in time, we're an organization in terms of revenues very close to $1 billion, 5,500 employees, as you mentioned before, privately family owned, and so there are three branches of the Feta family, but they all live in unity and believe in the company, or they're fully invested in the company. And yeah, so my colleague Thomas Otto and I, we are the two appointed managing directors. That's how we call ourselves, since we are not a publicly traded company, and so we are GmbH and Co. KG under German law. And with that said, your official title is a managing director. What do? We fill approximately 250 million syringes, vials, cartridges, dual chamber cartridges and syringes, and so forth, and have another branch, the so-called Vetter development services, where we take molecules, help to a certain degree to get it into a robust formulation slash applicability in the clean rooms, that we really have the same precise outcome every single time we have a filling campaign, and help, for example, with the design of combination products, how that all comes together, the molecule, how you fill it, what's going on maybe with an injection device, how to marry that. Is there a need for secondary packaging? In which way, shape, or form could we design a kit together and get that onto the secondary packaging side? So there are all kinds of questions we are addressing with our clients in the development services there, starting really from phase one. We have clients from phase one all the way to preparing for market success. And then later on, that's what we are better known for, is the commercial manufacturing side, where we do fill finish services for the who's who in pharma biotech. So all top 20 big pharma biotech companies are on the active client list, mostly with multiple projects, products. So had been extremely rewarding to be exposed to the who's who of that industry. But now back to your question. So where do we come from? So if you want to know where you're going, you have to understand a little bit your own history, which is indeed over 70 years, 71 years to be precise. So the foundation of let's say the Vetter pharmacy was 1950, which was a normal smaller pharmacy directly in the downtown area of the quaint town of Ravensburg in southern Germany, very close to Lake Constance. And our founder of the company, Mr. Helmut Vetter, he had that idea after a couple of his acquaintances, pharmacists from the region, asked him if he can help to package certain pills and certain pharmaceuticals. And other than being a pharmacist, he developed that idea. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, so we could do packaging as a service as well. And that was the idea. And in the beginning, it was everything what we did except sterile products. So that's how it started out. And then in the 1970s, all of a sudden, so the first sterile products came into play and the first syringes came into play. And in the 1980s, all of a sudden, there was a need how to combine in a meaningful way lyophilized drug substances with the diluent. And that was the idea of the dual chamber application a lot of people know us for. Other than being a contract manufacturing organization, we still have that CDMO in mind, that development actually, and develop some of the features what you need around a successful application. In that case, it was a dual chamber application. And more we got from the pure filling aspect more and more into the service aspect. And the Vetter Development Services is one of those testimonies, which is now a solid branch of our business. And that's what customers expect from us. So, for example, we hadn't had vial lines for a longer period of time, and we had to learn that we are not paid only for dual chamber or the highest degree of complexity, how we can fill things. We are really paid for handling the complexity of the molecule and getting it robust every single time, 100% sterile and in compliance with regulatory requirements into a pre-filled container. And maybe you have to secondary package it and so forth. So when you look back, when I joined in 2003 for the first time the Vetter organization, I think I was number 1100 and change on the payroll. So in the meantime, we have 5,500 people, and we yeah, more than quadrupled the business since then. So had been really quite interesting. I always compare that when I was at a certain point responsible for supply chain. We felt that need once we had that first growth spur 2003, 2004, 2005, somewhere along those lines, when we were moving more from, let's say, 1,100 people towards 2,000 people. All of a sudden, we were not playing free jazz anymore. To utilize that analogy towards music, where you knew some people, you looked your guys on the drums right in the eyes, and he came up with his solo, and you were blowing the trumpet. So at 2,000 or more people, all of a sudden, at least you play big band. Maybe not symphony orchestra, but at least big band. You need notes, and all of a sudden, it's not okay if the guy is really beating the drums at 9 o'clock in the morning when that is required 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So that has to be really streamlined, and you have to grow up as an organization. And so right now, if you look into that, right, what we had at least the last yeah, 12, 13 years, that had been quite a change, a lot of investment. So the Vetter family is believing into this business as well. A lot of reinvestment of everything what we earn here into the company, and really to build the business, to have the right capacity to prepare for success with roughly 250 projects we entertain right now in the Vetter development services, and a majority will hopefully hit at a certain point in time the market. And you have to have at that right point the capacity, since people don't want to just shift gears and say, oh, okay, fine, they helped us this far in the development, and now where do I go now with that commercial success? So once you learn together with your client a lot about that product and you develop the processes, you definitely want to have a continuation there. And we have to be prepared for what's coming. So from this perspective, we're still building. On the other hand, we just finalized our new strategy, Vetter Next 2029. And what you find almost in every other bullet point, what the strategy is all about, has a lot to do with Industry 4.0, digitization, a couple of things where you can deploy artificial intelligence on some of the things, because we will see a lot of baby boomers and folks who have the knowledge going into their well-deserved retirement, while on the other hand, you have the need to build this business, to expand, to be prepared for those projects. And we definitely need some support there, even from machines and processes, where we cut out some of the routine work, where we can utilize our human talent in a better way. And that will be definitely one of those challenges. And we are not only facing, I think the industry will facing how you do your knowledge management, because everybody who has money, who can invest into the business, can buy a filling machine, and they can buy some clean room walls, and say, okay, fine, I have a new pharmaceutical site. That's all nice and fine. But really to make it perfect, and to have a product day in, day out, which really is exactly how the customer expects it, and the customer of the customer, the patient, expects it every single day, that is really at the highest quality. You can only do that with your people. That is really the core asset we have in the company, that really that experience, what we have collected over all of those decades. And that's what you have to get, that DNA, what you have to get into your team members' heads every single time you take on new members. And you have to reiterate that point there with the folks who are on board. But as I said before, when good things are happening, usually a good team is involved.
No, it's really quite fascinating to hear the breadth of the offering, but also what a sizable CDMO business. I mean, I know this industry reasonably well, and even researching, in advance of obviously speaking to you today, Peter, I was quite astounded by the scale and size that has become. And I'm not saying you guys go under the radar, because obviously you're a very well known business and certainly very well respected. I was mentioning to your colleague that I was speaking to earlier, I mentioned I was going to be interviewing you and Vetter to a CDMO and a CEO in the US, and his immediate response was, "Oh, they're a great organization." They're, it's really quite fascinating to see the reputation that you guys have built over there. But it's a phenomenal success story, and I wanted just to ask you a little bit about my understanding. Obviously, is you spent a big, almost your second era at Veta. I think largely in the US. So I was kind of curious to know what that journey was like, and why you made that decision. And I believe now you've moved back to to Germany. So
Yeah.
more out of curiosity, as someone who's moved from Europe to the US and had my family here and all that type of thing, I was just interested to know kind of some of the reasons behind that, and link closely to that because I suspect it could be related. I was going to ask you also about you obviously you're a joint managing director with I think Thomas is the other joint
Yeah.
managing
Yeah.
director.
Thomas
So
Otto. Mhm.
so I was curious to know how that works as well. How do you have two leaders in an organization, and maybe it's geographic, which is why I'm kind of tying the two questions together. So if you could give us a little bit of insight into your journey to North America and then and back to Europe, but also link to that how you and Thomas manage the kind of dual responsibility of running a $1 billion company.
So there are definitely at least 4 or 5 questions in your
Yeah,
question, but I really
sorry,
try to
sorry.
compartmentalize it a little bit and back up
Okay.
a tad. And so let us go back. So what really got me back to the US? So I used to work for Sartorius for 5.5 years based on Long Island, New York, way back then. At the end, being responsible for what we called way back then the separations division for the Americas, which was North America and Latin America before Feta found me. And I relocated for 4 years with my family back to Germany. And before rejoining Sartorius, so I've worked twice in my life for two organizations, and I still speak to both of them and burn bridges, so which is kind of a unique combination. But at any rate, in 2007, my family and we were setting sails, um, um, moving to back to the US. This time, not to the East Coast, to the West Coast. This time, to the Bay Area,
Mhm.
since Sartorius acquired their Stedim, and Stedim had a facility in Concord, California. And on the other hand, they were in the need for a vice president of global key account management. And yes, okay, Peter, we thought about you anyways. If you want to rejoin the team, we still trust you. We need somebody who helps us with that integration of the site in Concord. And as long as you have a big airport in the surrounding, if that is Frankfurt, Germany, or San Francisco, we don't care as long as you're flexible. And say, okay, that sounds really fantastic. And I relocated my family and myself back to California
Mhm.
until Feta came around, and a couple of those folks where I had a different opinion what the strategy should be of Feta, how we should conduct certain sales elements and so forth. Left Feta, and together with the Feta family, we reassembled, I think, a great team here. Thomas Otto was still one of the constant factors. I will get back to Thomas and our relationship a little later in one of the questions you asked me. And so in those days, Federer asked me if I would be interested to join the managing directors team. I said, okay, guys, you found me with a 16 months old baby. My son Tim, who's now 20, is he was born on Long Island. He's a U.S. citizen, as a German citizenship. So my wife and I, we were green card holders at that point in time. And so it's like, okay, you found me there. I relocated back to Germany because of some of the circumstances at the company. I decided to leave and go back to the US. I'm not packing my overseas container every 5 minutes, so that's no problem. So you can definitely stay where you are as long as you are flexible to spend approximately 8 to 10 days here at the headquarters. You still have relationships within the company. You do know how we tick. You worked here at the headquarters for more than 4 years. And yeah, we definitely can see that. On the other hand, we all had that view that we have to do more in the United States. And I always had was a former folks there that kind of saying that I might not be the sharpest knife in the drawer, but you have to fish where the fish is. And if I think about it, my home of choice there, California, had more products in the relevant market segment of high-end biopharmaceuticals than the entire EU together. Yeah, go figure. Yeah, so that's why we said, okay, we have to reinvest into that market. We came up together with that idea of we have to have a branch of the Feta Development Services in North America. So I was employee number 5 at that point in time in North America, other than 4 key account managers at that point. And so in the meantime, we are north of 200 people working for us in North America, with a focus of A, the key account team, which really expanded, and B, which is really a great success story, is our Feta Development Services in Chicago. So very
Hmm.
close to Chicago, on the northwestern side in Skokie, Evanston, that area where the
Yeah.
Northwestern University is. We're in that Illinois Science and Technology Park, and really built an operation which has now a meaningful size. Approximately a third of our project pipeline is coming straight through Chicago, and yeah, that had been really an interesting story where Feta got much better known not only by a couple of big pharma biotech companies in the US, but by a whole array of pharma and biotech companies, ranging from almost virtual companies, people who have a great molecule idea and bring it to market with the help of some CDMOs, all the way to the big companies. So we have that entire range of companies in our shops there, and we are well known for that. So with that said, uh, me going back and forth. On the other hand, together with our team, we did a nice job to build our North American organization there. So Feta has become a completely different setup. And with that said, yeah, I think my mission was done to a large degree, because we are still in that business of selling trust.
Hmm.
So if it's not that companies buy something from companies, it's that people buy something from people. And when you're in that business and you sign a contract, or you embark with a new molecular idea, and you come to a CDMO to help you, you definitely have to have that capacity as a CDMO. You have to have really the expertise to help these people, and on the other hand, to have that consistency day by day, that you deliver on that really high quality level, without any hiccups, and that you almost are integrated as a virtual site of theirs. That is really seamless integration through all kinds of functions, ranging from quality, from production, over your project management capabilities, to the key account organization at the commercial side. So all of that has to be integrated with your client side, almost that you don't have the feeling who is working for whom. That has to be really an extension of that process. And I think we understood that quite well and integrated ourselves quite well with our clients there. And yeah, so now coming back to the question, how does that work? That we have really two people spearheading the operations of Feta. So if we would be a publicly traded company, we would be co-CEOs. We are both sitting in the same box, being responsible for that, reporting to the board, where we have the 3 branches of the or tribes of the Feta family. We have subject matter experts there, and our executive committee, and that's where we bring in the checks and balances. So Thomas and I, we basically yeah, have that discussion with that group of people, our board, where our operations are going. And the good thing is, so we have both complementary talents.
Hmm.
So Thomas is definitely more focused on pharmaceutical manufacturing, on the quality organization, the development services, and finance controlling, where I came originally more from the Minister of Foreign Affairs side, being responsible for customers and customer projects. So that's what I still do: key account management, marketing, HR since more than 6 years now, supply chain management, corporate strategy, IT, and those type of things are on my side, and we have 100% trust that we do the right thing based on a foundation that we share a lot of the same values, what makes us tick, how we culturally run this organization, how we take certain decisions. It's really almost like a long marriage where you almost have only have to look at the other guy and you know what he's thinking, and vice versa. Or I
Yeah.
don't even have to call for certain decisions. What would be most likely the answer of my partner Thomas, or what would Peter say if Thomas gets a question and he goes through certain scenarios. So that, I think, that makes us extremely strong. I would definitely say that even in our private lives, we have a friendship relationship. I can trust him 100%, and vice versa. And that really makes us strong, that you don't really try to guide the organization into, let's say, at least one and a half directions. No, there's one direction. That is quite clear.
You're listening to Molecule to Market, where we go inside the outsourcing space of the global drug development sector, the podcast for professionals working in the pharma and biotech contract services space.
We are supported by ZymeWire, which is the leader in actionable sales intelligence for life science business development professionals. In fact, thousands of life science BD professionals start their day with sales signals from ZymeWire. And our friends at ZymeWire are giving Molecule to Market listeners an exclusive deal. Just head to zymewire.com/molecule to market to learn more. Now, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing the insight. I imagined it was going to be a close complementary relationship, but it's such an unusual setup for an organization. So I think it's great that you guys have managed to kind of get that to work. And you've talked about, I suppose, the range of clients that Veta has, or services across the world now, and from big pharma to kind of small biotech companies. In Boston, where I'm based, there's tons of them, and they're all looking for competent partners. Why do you think it is that they choose Veta? What is it about and obviously there's lots of reasons, but I'm interested to know kind of what's the kind of Veta factor, if you like, that makes you so compelling to so many types of buyers? Because there's some really interesting secret sauce obviously there. I'm not asking you to necessarily share that, but is there a commonality between different buyer types that they all seem to choose Veta for a specific reason? Or said another way, is there a superpower that you guys have that is unparalleled in some way?
Yeah, I think there's a certain mix of attributes what makes us successful. So if you look really on the hierarchy of needs, and lack of a better term, why are people going to CDMO in the biopharmaceutical space, and what do they expect? So one, or the number one buying criteria, is still quality. There's a huge void. And then you find things, for example, like how do you manage your relationships there? Are you technologically at the forefront? Do you have a certain level of innovations in the clean rooms that you always are up to par, or just a tad better as most companies out there? And then pricing, for example, is somewhere criteria number 4 to 5. Not that pricing is not important, but in conjunction with the quality, with the security of supply here, how you manage those relationships, that they can rely on you. That is really, as I said before, we are selling trust to a large degree, and not only products, that we are there and deliver exactly up to the client's expectations, to have that DNA and that sheer will to do that. That is really something which is deep in the DNA and makes us unique. But in terms of the pricing, it's really kind of a total cost of ownership topic, where usually if you look on an Excel spreadsheet, sometimes just dollars for dollars, we have never been accused to be the cheapest organization. But if you look on us from a total ownership perspective, total cost perspective, it is a completely different story where all of those other things come into play. And as I said before, it's really the people who makes this company tick. And usually when the going gets tough, our experts live up to the highest level of their competency. And that's what you see every single time. It's not that all of a sudden things fall apart when difficulties will be there no matter what. And sometimes we make mistakes. We have to bridge certain gaps if maybe some unforeseeable obstacles come up in our client's organization, or there's a shortage of supply, or how do we handle the supply chain, for example, even in pandemic times, which had been quite an undertaking, but we managed that. I'm happy to say that over 1.5 years, there was not a single batch what we did not deliver at the end. And that is something where people can rely on us, and still day in day out they get the exact same quality from this organization. I think that mentality here in the region where we are with our headquarters helps to a certain degree. It's sometimes a little bit more understatement. It's not that we really try to sit on a high horse and really sit on our laurels and become complacent and really think we are so great. That has always to be one of those factors that you still stay grounded, and you really know why you're in business, and you have the patience behind that in mind. And that helped us a lot through the pandemic as well. So when that all broke loose, you certainly ask yourself the question, if you have for 5,500 people a responsibility, do we endanger anybody here? So how do we get through this kind of virus? What do we do? And at the end of the day, I think within a couple of hours, it was quite clear to us we have to perform, we have to have the gates open, and really go through the motions. There's no such thing that somebody invented a sterile syringe filling application in your living room. That will not happen. There's no home office or such thing. So roughly over 3,000 people definitely had to come in a 3-shift model in most clean rooms. And you could really shift a little bit around in some of the administrative functions. But I think people were more committed than ever. If I look even on the deviation rate, on the absenteeism rate and other things during the pandemic, we became better in the last 1.5 years. So people really lived up when the going gets tough to those type of challenges which were thrown at them, and they respond. And that's really one of those things, the culture, which was instrumental to carry us even through tough times. And that's what you see sometimes in projects as well. Yeah. Life throws you a curveball from time to time, or projects can go the wrong way. And it's always a question, not how deep do you fall, how high will you jump back? And that's what you see with Vettel.
Yeah, no, that's such an interesting insight, and I think it's probably reflected across the CDMO sector, and when the industry needed to be called upon to turn up and deliver when it was not always safe to do so. Businesses and teams and cultures performed, and that that sounds like
By the way, what I forgot, Raman, is one of your previous questions, but maybe to the listeners, if they're still hopefully with us,
they are definitely.
So what made me relocate back to Germany? So I had a lifestyle every single month flying back and forth between Munich, Germany, and San Francisco, California, and going back and forth. And my lifestyle came to grinding halt with the pandemic. So I was sitting for 3.5 months in a home office. I was up at the most awkward times there, and tried to help to manage the crisis from my computer screen, which was kind of an eerie feeling in the beginning. And then at the end of the day, we landed on the 4th of July 2020 in Munich, the entire family, and had all of us 2 suitcases per person, and that was our inventory for the next 7 months. And basically, it's okay, fine. So my spot is definitely over here. My boy just finished high school in May 2020, so he is doing education mechatronics here in Germany since he has dual citizenship and speaks both languages. So he decided that, and my wife, as always, is so flexible, supporting us, supporting me, and just it's okay, fine. That's all right. Let's stay there. And then we decided at the end of the day that our lifestyle, as we were used to that for almost 14 years, is not livable anymore. And in the foreseeable future, you see it right now with certain warnings around Germany, Central Europe, on the US side. And I'm sure after Thanksgiving, unfortunately, I'm sure that the infection will rise again with college kids coming back. People travel state to state. It's just one of those harsh realities we're still facing. We're facing here in Germany and in Europe with a fourth wave again. And so hopefully, after more vaccinations and booster shots and what have you, surely but slowly we will get out of this misery. But that was one of those things where we clearly said, no, our spot is right here. And so we have sold our property in California and relocated back to Germany. Just as a little insight there, what
And I
happened.
hope you made, I'm going to guess you made lots of a good margin in that time period in San Francisco.
Honestly, that was one of my better ideas in life. So we have acquired our place at the tail end of the economic crisis way back then,
Wow.
and you can imagine if if everything was going crazy in the housing market. So, things appreciated quite a bit, but homes became quite expensive as well in Germany.
Jim.
So that's from that perspective, we could need it.
Yeah. And on the point there around, COVID, and, from bitter experience of my current household at the minute, where I managed to get COVID 2 weeks ago and have now passed it to my family, and we're living in a difficult 2-bed apartment in Boston, as we all have to deal with it. And you're absolutely right. I suppose for everyone that listens to a molecule to market, the even with vaccinations, COVID still remains here, and we hope everyone stays safe and travels safely, because from personal experience, it's not it's not a pleasant virus to get. And Peter, we have another 5 minutes or so
Yes.
left, and I would love to talk about the kind of future of the industry. You talked about Industry 4.0 and, that 2029, and I suppose the digitization of what you guys do. And it would be great for our listener. I think you come across as a very knowledgeable, visionary individual. That's certainly my perception of spending some time
Thank
talking
you.
to you. And you obviously have, and we should do a round two, because I'd love to ask you about some of the mistakes you've also made on your journey, because, what we don't want to do is paint a picture of, that it doesn't happen without challenge, and, it doesn't always happen without, issues and mistakes and lessons that you learn on the way. But I certainly know our listeners love to get insight as we kind of go into the new year of, what's going to happen in the industry in the next couple of years. How will outsourcing evolve, some of the other bigger kind of trends that you expect to see, and any kind of pearls of wisdom you can leave our listener would be hugely appreciated.
Yeah, so we have seen that now for the last couple of years, certain trends where you see applications and products in the orphan drug arena, sometimes ultra orphan drugs, where you have only a few thousand patients around the globe, and where we need really small quantities, where you have small batch sizes, only maybe a few thousand, ranging almost to a couple of hundred to a few thousand you make per batch. And on the other hand, we still have to prepare ourselves for applications. I'm just thinking about one where we do over 70 million pre-filled containers of the same kind for a company in the GLP-1 analog market as an insulin replacement. And you have to be prepared for everything in between. If I look on the majority of the products, it is still everything between 100,000 to a million units a year. You find a whole array there. Then there's a big void, and then you have the really big applications with tens of million of the same kind. And so that was one stretch where you have to have lines which can do really the ultra offens, and you have to have high speed lines which can serve a market with 50 million plus units. So that was one observation there. It was certainly a market which evolved towards certain combination products where to make it easier for the patient to get medication, where you have to have an idea about devices, how you get that together with the ammunition slash, for example, a syringe or a cartridge, how you do that, how you come to more robust processes, even in the vial market, with more fragile molecules, more demanding molecules. And what we see and what we have in front of us is what we call the so-called third wave of biotech. So first wave of biotech was something like the erythropoietins, EPOs, growth hormones, and so forth. Then we had that big age of the monoclonal antibodies, which is still roughly 40-50% of the product portfolio, what we still have in shop. So now we have arrived more at the oligonucleotides and really some specialties. You already see things like viral vectors coming up there, CAR T cell applications, you name it, and it will. There's a certain trend towards more and more individualized medication in order to meet unmet needs out there for patients. So the big question will be, do we have the healthcare system to pay for all of that? But that would be a completely different discussion. But at least we have to be prepared for some of those molecules that they go to market, and we support our customers, and we still maintain the portfolio we have, and we can entertain really the big applications with the tens of millions per year. On the other hand, what we see from customers, that they not just come for, okay, can you fill this container for me and send it back? And then we will do the rest and do the secondary packaging and all the analytics and then end. The opposite is the case, that we have more and more companies who understand that it is really beneficial to really partner with a CDMO. Once you find a good CDMO who can play on different playing fields and levels and support you, for example, with your laboratory needs, with the analytical services, with the secondary packaging, with the filling, with the filing for different markets to understand what EMA, what FDA, what maybe the Japanese authorities or Anvisa in Brazil or you name it is requiring, and to play on all of those turfs and to lend your expertise towards those companies as an extended workbench. And with digitalization and so forth, we become much more transparent and become an integral part of those companies. We see that with some organizations who already work feverishly with us on those type of projects, that we are really joined at the hips and completely transparent what we do, and we show up as a virtual site on their computers, and vice versa. So that is more and more continuing to happen while we are really serving a complete colorful scenery of biotech products out there, the established products and everything what's coming out there, which will be really in the next decade, from my perspective, in the later 2020s. It is really the age of biotech. I think what we have seen now with mRNA molecules as one example to fight the pandemic. If we wouldn't have had some of that research, which was more geared towards the oncology market, we would not be in the position right now to somewhat fight at least the pandemic successfully. And I'm sure those companies will go back to the drawing board, the BioNTechs, the Modernas of the world, and so forth, to think about their original ideas, what they had with oncology products and how to handle mRNA and so forth. Very interesting times. It will address a lot of those unmet needs out there, and really happy with Vetter to be associated to such an industry which has a purpose. So usually, when you hire personnel right now and when your employer branding, everybody tries to look for a purpose. We have a great purpose. We always had a great purpose. It makes a significant difference in people's lives there on a daily basis. And personally, I'm quite proud that I can be a part of this team and make that happen, because some of those molecules would not be on the market with Vetter. Just thinking about age-related macular disease as one example, where it has to be sterile. You have to avoid particles which will be otherwise injected into the human eye, and it's an extremely difficult solution which almost has the viscosity of honey and has to be dosed down to the microgram, 10 to the minus 6 correctly. And with that said, there's a whole filling application in a double sterile bag around it before you get it to the surgeon. That is very demanding, and those molecules would be probably not on time there without organizations such as Vetter. I can name a couple of other ones, such as, for example, a drug against children's Alzheimer's. So there's even such thing, but you have to freeze vials at minus 70 degrees centigrade, what we all learned in the pandemic, that we need those things from time to time. Yeah, we already had that kind of expertise when we tried it for this ultra-orphan drug market and how to do that. And that's why we always have to push ourselves and get better and really be innovative and really try to live up to those challenges to get more molecules onto the market. So there is a big purpose to do this.
Well, some really amazing insights there. I was jotting lots of notes down, Peter, and I think one of the words I think you used there, which I think is a great sentiment to end our conversation, is just pride. And you certainly should be very proud of your achievements in your career, but also just the ongoing achievements at Vetter, not just at a commercial success level, but obviously the impact that you guys have on our children, our brothers and sisters, our parents. It's a wonderful story, and I'm so glad that we managed to make the time and get you on Molecule to Market, so our listener has a real understanding of you and your background, but also an insight into Vetter and what a fantastic organization that you guys have built there. So thank you very much for sparing us the time and being a guest on Molecule to Market.
Thank you so much, Raman, for the opportunity. As always, people who know you and how we got to know each other there, it's always fun to talk to you. It's almost upbeat. You're always at the forefront with your questions. You get all the different perspectives from the industry onto your desk, and you bring that to the conversation. So I really enjoyed that discussion with you. Thanks again, and hope to speak to you soon.
Yeah, well, now you're back in Munich. It's a good excuse for me to come
please.
to Munich and enjoy a Weiss beer or a Pilsner together. Would be lovely. So
yes, you have an open invitation, and so once the numbers look a little bit better here with COVID, that would be great to have you.
Yeah, no, that I'll take you up on that offer. And thanks again, Peter. You look after yourself and stay safe.
Thank you. Same to you, Raman. All the best to you and your family. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Hi again. Thanks so much for tuning in to Molecule to Market. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. You can find more shows on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you like to listen. Get in touch with us on our website, moleculetomarketpod.com, and follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter, and we will see you again next week.
You're listening to Molecule to Market, where we go inside the outsourcing space of the global drug development sector, the podcast for professionals working in the pharma and biotech contract services space. Molecule to Market is sponsored and funded by Remarketing, an international content, digital, and design agency that helps companies get noticed, raise profile, and generate leads in life sciences.